3, 2, 1.
Well, hello, everybody. Welcome in. So glad to see everybody. As we can see, we've got the wonderful Mr. Lyle Stokes on the show tonight. So, welcome in, Mr. Lyle. I see we've got Avid in the chat, Dale Hayslip, Mr. Joe Ziegler. Welcome in. I have had a good week so far. I hope you have as well. I see Miss Annette Morgan, and there's my favorite Tom in the world, Mr. LG Bass. I hope everybody's doing really good today. We're waiting on Stan to pop in here. He should be here any minute. So I hope everybody's had a great week. And we are lucky enough to have Mr. Lyle up here tonight. And I hope you guys enjoy it. It's going to be a really great show. You've been doing good, Lyle?
I have been. I thank you for inviting me into your show. Looks like a good time. People are jumping right in here. When Stan gets in here, I'm quite sure business will pick up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. He messaged me, so he's definitely on his way tonight. So he'll be here. But yeah, Lyle and I were discussing before we opened the show about the weather and how hot it's been. And I hope you guys have managed to stay cool this week and, try to enjoy this hot summer as it just seems to be so extra hot all across the country this year. So
I think it come in early too.
I think so too, Lyle.
We usually
Absolutely.
didn't have 100-degree weather the first part of July, and this year we had it really early. In fact, in the latter parts of June. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And
horrible.
usually it doesn't get like in the upper 90s until around August here.
Yes, yeah,
And
late
for it
late
to
July, first August.
yeah, and for it to come so early, it's been crazy.
It has
I,
been. How many times do you ever see anybody do shows like we do and talk about weather, and it's on every one now because it's a main subject. It affects the way you fish. It affects the way you get together bait, and a lot more people are fishing nights than they used to just to stay out of the heat. There's just a lot of ways to jump around it, I guess.
yeah, we've all got to find different ways too, to compensate because goodness gracious, I'm hoping next summer it'll calm back down and things will be back to normal again. But this summer's definitely been odd as far as the
It
weather is
has.
concerned.
Yep.
People have had floods in parts of the country that never have floods, and
Right.
you know that Kentucky flood has been devastating, and it's real close to
Uh,
home. So it's
yeah, I feel so sorry for those folks over there because they're losing everything and lives and homes and cars and trucks and farm ground and everything else. And all we can do is say a few prayers for them because realistically, we can't do anything to really help them.
right. Yeah, yeah. Prayer, I think, is the main thing that we can all do. And if you don't, whatever you believe in, good vibes, good thoughts, prayers, definitely send them to all the people in Kentucky because they're really needing them right now. They're struggling and having a really rough time and a lot of loss. So
Yep.
yeah, we definitely need. I see it's all mine, Miss Michelle. Welcome in. I hope you're doing fantastic tonight. So, how's the jig business going, Mr. Lyle? How you doing with all of that?
With what? I'm sorry.
With your jigs? How's
Oh,
jig business going?
we got tons and tons of them built up, ready to go, and we get orders for them and we send them out. But um, I haven't built any. Believe it or not, I haven't built any in 2 or 3 nights. That's really rare. I usually build them every day, but
Do
I didn't have anybody want anything specific. But I mean, I've got boxes of them packaged up, ready to go. So
so if anybody needs any jigs, this is your man right here.
I get
Definitely.
people sending me messages. They catch fish on them all the time and sending me pictures. And one of these days, I'll start posting those pictures up because they're catching a lot of panfish on them and a few bass. And now I can do specific bass jigs,
Hmm.
but when they're catching them on the crappie and bluegill jigs, that's just that much better.
That's exactly right. Yeah. And so, of course, we know that your jigs and stuff are fantastic for panfish, and we just wrapped up panfish here on the show.
Hmm.
And so now we're into crappie and we're getting ready to wrap that up. So, is there, can you tell from summer to summer that there's a big difference in the colors or in the size or in any of that that you make from year to year?
I can
Or is it,
tell the difference from spring to summer, summer to fall, and fall to winter. So we actually do a collection series of spring, summer, fall, and winter because you can go out and it doesn't matter if you're fly fishing with flies or you're jig fishing with ultralights. Um, they'll start changing, and watercolor clarity has something to do with it.
mhm,
Um, the colors of the jigs, if you make them to where they're one color or more colors, um, Betty Jean was come on one night in a chat I was in and asked
mhm,
me if I could build a fire tiger jig. And to be quite honest, I don't do any bass or fishing or anything like that. And I I asked her to describe it to me. So she told me what it should look like.
mhm,
Tied one up and she said, "That's it. That's exactly what I was looking for." So I sent her two or three of them and she caught a bunch of fish on them. And I started using them jigging. And
mhm.
it was amazing in the early spring through early summer. Now, with the 100-degree weather being here, I haven't been back out, but those things was not that we didn't catch stuff on other things, but
Mhm.
those in particular was really hot in the early part of the year. So I can't wait till the temperature drops a little bit so I can get out there. But we need some rain. The creek that I normally go out to fish is so low right now. I would have to walk up and down a rocky creek bed, and I'm not going to do that to find the fish. So when it gets back up, we'll try them again. But last year, Cindy and I was fishing on Palm de Terre Lake, and we was
Mhm.
catching lots of bluegill and stuff, and we was catching them on more natural colors. So,
Mm.
but that was in the fall and early winter before it got really cold. So I'll get more information on that. I really didn't pay much attention to it until the last year or so. So we'll get more information on that, and I'll be able to answer that question a little better for you maybe next year.
Nice. Yeah. Hello, Stan. How are you, bud?
Hello, hello. How you
Hey,
doing?
Welcome in. Welcome in. I hope you've had a good day today.
Crazy as always. Hello, Mr. Lau. How you doing today?
I'm good, great, Stan. How are you, sir?
Awesome, awesome.
Absolutely. And so, does it, with your jigs, is it, can you tell between panfish and crappie? Is there a big size difference that you notice that, like crappie like a little bigger jig, or do they like the small jigs like the bluegill like, or what, do you see a difference there in size?
I think crappie will take them big or small. Some days they prefer them to be bigger. Other
Hmm.
days they not so much. But the bluegill will also take a bigger one, but you miss a lot of hookups with them if it's too big.
Right.
So if you can get like a micro jig for them, you're a lot better off.
Gotcha.
And a
Gotcha.
micro jig, in my opinion of a micro jig, is 1 inch or smaller. Now,
Gotcha.
crappie, I've caught some up on 2 and 3 inch ones, not recently, but in the past, and they don't seem to mind a bigger one. But there's
Hmm.
certain times of the year, like the hot part of the summer, that they would prefer them because you're going down a lot deeper. And I think when you get deep with crappie, they're easier to see if they're bigger.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And you mentioned that, you noticed a difference as far as color and things, spring, summer, fall, depending upon where you are in the weather. Have you noticed, I know you had mentioned that like in early spring, or like when it's real hot, they like more natural looking jigs. Have you
Mhm.
noticed that the deeper you go, the more flashier that they like them, or is it all really based on water quality and where the fish are in the water column?
So a certain amount of that has to do with water clarity because the sun will only go down so far in muddy water and affect the flash of whatever type jig or lure you're using. Now, if the
Hmm.
water's really clear, that depth changes and it goes down a lot deeper. You might be able to see the sunlight and it actually give off a flash at say 4 or 5 feet, where when
Mhm.
it's really muddy, if you're lucky, if it gets down past a foot or so. So I think that water clarity has a lot to do with it. How far down it's effective, I don't know, but the deeper I fish, the more dark tone colors I want. Dark purples, dark blacks, browns, striped stuff with black or brown stripes in it. Uh,
Hmm.
Anything to give a more natural presentation. Greens or chartreuse with a black stripe down it to where it looks like that's the outline of the top, the back of a bluegill usually works really good in those situations.
Nice, nice. I see Lance McCougar jumped in. Hello, Lance, and there's Possum Outdoors. So happy that you joined us. Thanks
And
for.
Lyle, if you could say that one more time, it goes against what most people would think. You would think in the darker, deeper with less light, you would want a lighter color, but
Hmm.
But it
the
don't work that
darker
way.
colors show up better.
They do.
That's
The darker
interesting.
colors show up better. It's not so much a silhouette of any certain thing. It's just that it's dark.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Dark. It's not naturally supposed to be there. It ain't all around it, so they just go right to it.
That's
And
interesting.
if they run up to it and take a look, and you jig it at that exact, they're going to take it because they think it's something live and it's something to eat, and that's what they want.
Hmm. That is interesting, Stan. I'm glad you brought that up because you would think that it is right the opposite. That the deeper you got, the more flash. Maybe they would get their attention more. But I guess with the lack of light, with the water quality,
Yeah.
um, you
And
know, it's going to dull it out anyways.
and the general rule of thumb is the same on as far as dark and bright days. You want your brighter, lighter
That's
colors.
right.
Dark days, darker colors. The same. That same general rule. And I see a bunch of times where people do it exactly backwards. And
Yeah.
Hmm.
In the summer, when that sun's out shining bright, I want something flashy out. Something
Gotcha.
flashy, something that when that sun hits, it turns them on, gets them excited. If they get excited, they're going to head right to it, and that's where your real bright silvery stuff and things with a lot of flash and what we put in them is different colors of this. This is called crystal flash, and it's strands of flashy stuff, and in the light, it really glows and bounces off light in every direction. And I'll put a strand or two of that in most every one, not every one, but most every one. And I try to coordinate them. On the darker colors, I have some black crystal flash. This is gold. It kind of goes with everything. I love it with a bluegill pattern fly or
Hmm.
jig. It works out really good because if you take a look at bluegill and a lot of the sunfish, they have a gold tint when the sun hits them just right. So I also will add a lot of green or black to them because they all have a black stripe that goes down their back, and you're just trying to match what's out there for them to eat.
Right. Have you noticed that? Because I know that you had mentioned on your show before, you had brought up a jig that actually looked like a fly. Have you noticed that the jigs that you tie that look like the actual bugs, that they do better in the different seasons, or are they better shallow? What have you noticed about those?
I have found that those work the very best on top water or just under the surface. I tie a lot of jigs up with foam on them. I
Hmm.
might have one here. Not right now. But they have make foam bodies of them, and a lot of them call them ants, and they're in different configurations of all kinds. And some of them actually look like an ant, some of them don't. But they all got a feather wrapped around them to make them look like a whole bunch of legs on them. And that movement sitting on top of the water gives off, I think it gives off a slight vibration, but it gives off a lot of movement, and that's what attracts them. And then others are made with thread, and you will coat them with UV preservative and put a light on them and make it hard, and put the a feather on them to make them again look like it has legs in different areas of the body, but they're hard, and those will mostly stay right underneath the surface of the water. And
Mhm.
in clear water, you can watch them fish come right up to it. Sometimes they'll take it, sometimes they won't, but they'll just maybe two or three of them at a time, and you just leave it set there. If it sits very long, one of them can't stand it. They got to try it out, see if it's any good. But I enjoy that part of it a great deal. And well, you can do that with clear water, with top water stuff, or stuff just under the surface. And if you're using a fly rod with that kind of stuff, of course you're stripping it back to you. And as you strip it, you'll see them fish run up to it, and then they'll stop. And you'll leave it a minute, and then you'll strip it again. They'll run up to it and stop. So when it gets right there, really close to you, you just wiggle the end of that line and make it kind of dance in front of you, and you can watch them jump up and they just slam it. It's just a ton of fun doing that.
Yeah, because I mean that would make perfect sense. Being, of course, the bugs are going to fall in the water, and you know
Right.
they're used to coming up when they're looking for that type of something to eat. You know, it makes sense them coming up to the top of the water column to get those. So yeah, that's what I was thinking. But just like Stan had said earlier, sometimes it's right the opposite of what you think. So
Sometimes it is. Now, a secret that a lot of people tell you and a lot of people won't tell you is if you happen to be fly fishing or jig fishing, as far as that goes, uh, if you find a bank that is in the shade and has trees above it, there'll be fish in there every time. It don't even have to be deep. It don't have to be deep at all. The fish will be looking for that cool spot to get out of that hot water. And
mhm,
let's face it, if it's in the shade, it's going to be cooler than where it's not in the shade. So they'll run up there, and they're underneath trees to start with, so insects and stuff are falling off of them all the time. They
mhm,
go up in there in that cool and get them a snack and be good to go.
And I was
yeah,
going to say it's a constant food source falling down on them.
Yep,
If you find that situation where there's some flowering bushes by that, yellow and black is an amazing pattern.
that's
Uh,
right.
Bumblebees and bees tend to have that yellow and blackish, so that's an amazing pattern. If you
Yep.
find some fruit bushes and things like that.
Another good place is if you find a mulberry tree underneath one. Bugs love them mulberry trees. They love them. And then
really,
so does catfish and carp and everything else. They're sitting there waiting for that stuff to fall off in the water. The problem is on the rivers. There's not if you find a mulberry tree, chances are 900 people already seen it. But in these creeks and stuff, not so much because there's not as many people that walk up and down these creeks as you think they do.
right,
Some of them do. I was out fishing, well, I don't know, it was 2 months ago, and a young man stopped by. He looked to be about 15 years old, but he's old enough to drive. And he said, "How's that fishing?" I said, "Well, it's pretty good. I've caught a few today." And he said, "If you could walk down the creek about a mile, there's a big bend in it and a lot of deep water right there." He said, "That's where I fish." And I thought, well, that's good. If I was your age, I might try that, but I'm not. I won't.
right.
He was a really nice young man. I was glad he stopped and visited with me for a minute.
Yeah. And so is there you mentioned mulberry trees. Is it basically any trees that overlap the water's edge, or do you find a big difference in the mulberry versus the different species of
So
trees?
mulberries are definitely better than the others because the berries will fall off and the catfish will eat them. And what
Mm.
doesn't get eaten, it breaks apart and the small fish will eat that. But mulberries contain a lot of bugs. And most trees do, but there's just something about a mulberry tree.
Huh.
If you can find one on a bank, you'll find fish around it.
That's interesting because I
Most
didn't
year
know that.
round. Yeah,
Yeah.
most year round.
That's interesting. I did not know. Especially I didn't know the catfish ate the actual mulberries. I had no
Oh, yeah.
idea.
Yeah, channel cat love
Catfish, carp, a lot of
it.
yeah.
Yep, all of them do. Now the
Wow.
catfish, if they're big flatheads don't eat them as much as blues do. But if you get any bigger blues in there, they're going to run everything else off. Even big channel cat for the most part. But they only stay so long; they can only eat so much.
Right. Right. So that's kind of a swim up, get a snack, and swim back out and get back to business.
Yeah, yeah. Because
Gotcha.
they would much rather have a shad or a bluegill or skipjack, something like that to eat anyhow.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I see Wildcat Ricks just jumped in. Hello. Great to have you. So glad you came in. So you got any questions, Stan?
Let's see. So, for somebody that would interested in getting started in tying their own jigs, what do you recommend for somebody just getting started out there?
Great question.
There are a number of great starter kits available from a wide variety of different places. If I was going to start and I wanted to buy a kit, um, I'm trying to think of the guy's name is down in Texas. It does the show with LG or not LG, but
Steve from
yeah,
Limits Tackle. No
Lemons
Limits Tackle.
Tackle, exactly right. He has a really good starter kit at an unbelievably low price. But you just call him up and say, "Hey, Steve, I heard you had a starter kit for tying jigs and flies." And I'm not sure. I did know how much it was, but I don't remember now. I think it's around $45. But it's got everything you need to start with. And it's very reasonably priced. It's good quality stuff. And Steve has a ton and ton of different supplies like feathers. I get my feathers most of the time from him if I need any. Um, you can buy jigs and bodies and chenille and all kinds of stuff from him. But do understand that right now, for whatever reason, it's like everything under the sun. Chenille and a few other things are really hard to come by. Some suppliers have got some of them, some doesn't. And by the end of the year, they probably all have it back in there, from what I'm hearing. Woods and Water's another great place. I don't know. It seems to me they got a kit also, and I don't remember how much it is, but I buy a lot of my chenille from them and different things. Jason Brummel's where I get all my hooks and jigs. He's local to me, but he sells it online, and he's got tons and tons of it. And you can order any amount, I mean, any amount of hooks you want, and he'll have them ready for you in a day or two. I know he had an order for 5,000 not too long back. About 3 days, and they was ready to go. Yeah, and I sent them to another guy to get them powder coated, and that took quite a lot longer.
Right. What were you going to say, Stan?
I was just going to say, for everybody out there that may not know what chenille is, on your crappie jigs, that's that furry part of the body. It's basically like a furry thread. There you go, and you
It's
can get
the
that
white part on this. I'll see if I can get it to focus.
That's kind of like a pipe cleaner, but different.
Yeah, it looks a lot like a pipe cleaner, but no metal.
Yep. No metal. It's got thread down the center, and it just wraps on there.
That's
and you can get it
on the back of this one with a crystal flash, a silver crystal flash on it, and then it has a feather wrapped in over top of the chenille to make it look leggy. If I could keep that thing.
Oh yeah.
Keep it or stay put, but the feathers make it look leggy. And you just wrap that back up the top, tie it off, and you're good to go. Here's I heard it go up better. I'll try to get it turned around here.
And that brought up a question. You said that was squirrel tail on there.
Listen to this too.
Now, for all of us old timers, remember MEPS with the squirrels, the MEPS spinners with the squirrel tail. Do you use different hair for different purposes, or do you pretty much?
All I've made recently is squirrel tails. I thought in my mind, I was thinking the body hair was too small, and I never saved that. But I see guys are now using it. So the next time I have a infestation on my pecan tree, I will do the whole squirrel instead of that. Just cut the feet and the legs off and cut up the belly, and just like any other hide, you just tan them. I use salt to tan the tails. It does a really good job. In a couple of weeks, they don't have hardly any smell, no smell. And of course, when I peel them off, they're backwards, and I salt them down, put them in a bag with 2 or 3 more, and then when they're done, they're all done, and go on to the next one. But I have a pecan tree in my backyard, and I used to could watch squirrels when they get to ripe. The squirrels will start running up the street. hundreds of them, and we eliminated a lot of those last year.
Yeah, Lance says there's a company there in Wisconsin that'll buy squirrel tails for jig making.
That's probably MEPS.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I'm
MEPS
pretty
used to
sure that's where that was.
Yeah, they used to advertise. If you remember, Stan, they advertised in all the outdoor magazines, and it wasn't very much,
Yep.
but they'd take all the squirrel tails you could get, and they
Yeah.
made jigs out of them. They made great jigs. They put them on
I
those.
think back in the day you got like they paid you like a quarter a tail or something like that. It was
10 cents, but it might have been a quarter.
10 cents. Yeah.
I might have been thinking about it longer than you have. But
No,
yeah,
no, it was. But hey, as a kid, that was enough to get yourself some other lures, and
yeah, yeah. If I remember right, you could, if you had enough, they would trade it out for different lures that they
yep.
had. Yeah, that's what I was
And
thinking. That was a long time ago, Sam.
that was one of my a Meps Aglia Long, one of my favorite, all good for everything lures, spinners. It was just. I
Those,
caught more fish on that. It was crazy. That and an old school Rapala. That was my
Yeah.
That was my kit. If I had those, I could catch anything.
I loved those MEP spinners back in those days. They didn't cost you very much money. When you were a kid mowing yards for $2 or $3, $4 a yard, you didn't have much money, so you could take half of it and go buy fishing equipment and put the other half in gas in the car.
Absolutely. Love it. Well, you had mentioned that the bass were hitting your jigs. Are they hitting the smaller ones, or have you noticed a trend that they're getting after
They'll
the
hit
bigger
the small ones, but now some of these crappie jigs, I'll grab one of these and show you, Brenda. Some of these are a lot bigger. Well, not a whole lot, but somewhat. This is one I really like. And I mentioned natural colors a while ago, and this particular one I consider a very natural color. If I can get it out of the package here, I'll try to put this on a. I've got some. Here they are. I knew it had. Now, I consider that very natural color. It's gray and black. I don't know why it's not focusing any better than that, but that's a really nice jig. Um, I consider that. See, this in here compared to this one is a whole lot longer.
Oh yeah.
Well, I don't have an exact, but it's probably this one is just over an inch, and this one's 2 inches, is what it amounts to. And I'm not exact on that, but that's pretty close. So you're an inch bigger, longer with this one, and it has gray with gray crystal flash in it, black collar on it, and it's gray head. And no, that's not the natural color of the lead. That's actually um, powder coated, and then I put clear over top of it when I'm done with it. And in this case, the clear over both of those is UV glue.
Wow.
And I
That's
like UV glue because it lasts and takes a beat, and it's kind of like a Timex. Take a look at it. You know what I mean? UV is really strong, but for years and years, I have used Sally Hansen's or a clear fingernail polish over top of it.
mhm.
And that works extremely well too. It's a whole lot cheaper for me to buy. I can go to the dollar store and get that clear UV, or it's not UV, it's a clear fingernail polish they have for $1 a bottle. I've got
Mhm.
bottles
Yep.
around here. Every time I go, I'll pick up 2 or 3, and
Yep.
it lasts really good too. But it's not. It doesn't get quite as hard as the UV stuff.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that, and probably will last longer on the actual jig head, because I know with fingernail polish as a woman, if I've painted my fingernails and I go and I'm washing dishes and doing stuff and my fingernails are wet, it will come off much quicker than
Yeah.
like per se the different type that you have to have the light for the UV. It will stay no matter what, whether your hands are wet or not. I see
Right.
Brian Biggs jumped in here. I see Avid's jumped in, and I see Chad's jumped in from Fields to Water. Welcome in. There's Saskatchewan Stan jumped in. Hello, guys.
Yes,
Now,
I've used
I
fingernail polish.
go ahead,
Go ahead, Bob. I
I
was just
will
saying, I've
say,
used fingernail polish for years, and you can also use different colors. Like, you want to put a little dot of red on, like a crankbait or something. It
yep,
works great for that too.
I was going to say that Chad Fields is a heck of a jig tire.
Easy.
He really is. He got hooked when we started talking about tying jigs on Panfish Nation, and he ordered up a bunch of stuff. His daughter's tied a bunch. He has said for a while he was as bad as me and a lot of the other guys. He sit down every night and tie some stuff, and he got to really making some cool looking stuff. James Dockery's another one that got hooked on it. Ties up some really good stuff. Mark ties up some stuff, but he's so busy he can't stay at it long enough to. He just got too many things going on. But Chad probably excelled faster than about anybody I've seen because his work quality was really good on him. But he's just like everybody else. He's got all kinds of stuff going on, and then I brought him on a Catfish Weekly that cut him down another night.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I see Murillo's jumped in here. Hello, sir. Wildcat Riggs asked, would shad darts work for crappie?
Do what now?
Would shad darts work for crappie?
Absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely.
As a matter of fact, that what's that called? The trout magnets. Trout magnets are basically just the shad dart head, and then they have the different tails they put on. But yeah,
These
shad darts are also for that.
These little fish have brains about the size of your little fingernail. They're not real smart. They know they got to eat to survive, and they try not to get caught. They don't want to get ate by something else. So as long as they can get them a place to get a snack, some place to lay their head for a snooze once in a while, and I think for the most part, and somebody may correct me or disagree with me, but I think for the most part, these fish school up. These small fish school up to stay in numbers because they feel safer in numbers than they do single.
Right.
Got
And
to go.
Saskatchewan Stan wanted to know, have you ever tied up a 10/0 jig for catfish?
I have not, but I've been thinking about it a lot.
Just to give it a shot. You never know.
Well, yeah. I had a guy years ago tell me that in the spring, either right before or right after the fish come off of spawn, that he caught more flatheads with a spinning jig underneath the water, just bouncing along the bottom. Uh,
Hmm.
as long as the water was fairly clear and it was in shallow water, he was telling me about this. He'd slow roll that big jig back with a spinner on top of it and put a piece of cut bait on the hook. And he caught a ton of fish that way. And I thought about trying it, but I'd go out and I'd get to catching fish and I'd forget about it. And I never did try it. You know what I mean? You do something that's working for you and it's still working. You don't want to try nothing else until it no longer worked, and then you already forgot about what the guy told me. Well, he told me that years and years ago. He said it happens every spring. So,
Really?
but
And
yeah, I would
years
be,
What were you going to say,
years
Stan? Sorry.
years ago when they used the remember the trailers before plastics really started, it was the pork trailers, and that used to that would hold scent, and that would happen all the time where you were catching flatheads or channels, even blues on the pork rinds and the bass jigs.
yep. Stan, do you remember the big Umco tackle boxes that had multiple drawers that opened up and it
Yeah,
had a belly
yeah,
underneath it that removed? You could take the belly off. A lot of guys used that for ice and beer. Lyle used it
yeah.
for pork pieces. That was all that was in mine was pork pieces. I still had that. I looked the other day to see if there was any of them on eBay, and they're $500-600 now. And they
Oh, it's
haven't
crazy.
made them in years and years. And I'd give anything to have mine back. But it is what it is.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I see Jeremy's tournament caps jumped in. Hello, Jeremy. Great to see you as always.
And we have some people here in Richmond that are doing we've got Category 5 rapids. Well, just up from Richmond. At the bottom of those, they do a lot of jig fishing and what do you call it? The big swim baits.
Yeah.
The rubber swim baits for flatheads there in the current. They'll sit right up there at the bottom of it, and they're catching flatheads using jigs and swim baits. So
How
it does
successful
work.
How
That's interesting.
successful are they, Stan?
I'm sorry, what's that?
How successful are they with those jigs and swim baits?
Pretty successful. I mean, not quite as much as on live bait, but he has a YouTube channel, Zach Bostic, even young kid. Well, I say young kid, but he's in his 20s or 30 probably, and
They're biting those jigs and stuff consistently.
Yep.
Hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, you might need to make up some big jigs for catfish, Lyle. That might be something.
If I knew what people wanted, I could do that. But since I never have done it, but I would if I had the opportunity.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'd try that if I had the opportunity. But somebody that knows about that, knows what those jigs look like, send me a message or email or something and say, hey, those guys are jigging and here's what that looks like, and I'll build them.
Absolutely, that
I'd
sounds
give some away if I had a formula for them.
Well, we'll have to look into it. We'll have to look into it.
Heck yeah.
I see.
You know, it
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, it's like you were talking about that the young kid, 15, 16, that met you and said, if you go a mile, well, that's kind of like what these spots are. If you walk down this thing, across this bridge, there's the perfect spot to do it. So, needless to say, I haven't been there yet.
Yeah, my days for walking them long distance things are pretty much done, and I need to get back to walking because I'm having some leg issues, but a lot of that's just old age, I think. But creek bottoms and stuff are pretty rocky, and if I fall and hurt something, it would be really tough for me to um, get somebody down there to get me out because nobody know where the hell you's at.
Yeah, and Joe brings up a good point. I've watched catfish because he's from around here, and he has been putting. He calls them stinger hooks, but he's basically putting jigs on the end of his line, and he's having really, really good results out of it.
I'll have to go check that out. The kid could catch fish in a swimming pool, I believe. So
Yeah,
Justin's a really good guy. He's got a great channel. He doesn't mind telling people what he's doing or explaining it to them, which is one of the big things that we've always tried to do. But a lot of people have something like that, especially if they're term guys. It may go on several years before you find out what they're doing.
yep, that's very true. I see John from
Yeah.
Real Time Catfishing jumped in. Hello, welcome in. Mike Sampson jumped in. Hello, guys. So happy to have you.
Absolutely. Makes for a fun show. More people jump in chat.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
And
go ahead. I'm sorry, Stan. Go ahead.
no. I was just going to say, and my opinion is, I'm not sure about yours, but catfish are predator fish, and just like other predator fish, different tactics will work. So what you can use sometimes to catch, even like trolling with the worm harnesses for walleye and different things like that, it will work for catfish too.
Oh, I believe that. And Stan, I will tell you something that I've said before that most people probably didn't catch or didn't pay attention to. But years ago, when Cindy and I got behind on our electronics, we didn't upgrade like everybody else did, and we was getting spanked at the tournaments. And we get the money, but not every time. And you got to be consistent to be a tournament fisherman.
Mm-hmm.
I went and I couldn't figure out what it was going to take. I knew it wasn't all electronics. And I started watching walleye fishermen and how they fished. And I learned so much from them guys. I started adapting what walleye guys do on the Great Lakes to catch those big walleyes to catfishing in the rivers. And some of it paid off big. Others did not so much. But a lot of the techniques that they used helped us a great deal.
That's
cool.
awesome.
They have a unique way of. In those days, they knew things about electronics that a lot of us other guys didn't know, and that also helped me a great deal because I paid a lot of attention to them guys.
What was the number one piece of advice from that world that you brought over that really worked well?
Change the length of your leaders. I was set. I would go 18 to 24 inches, and I never changed them. And those guys would stop catching fish or not catch fish. And that's the first thing a lot of them would do back in those days. They would shorten it, try it for a while, or lengthen it and try it for a while until they found what was catching fish and be using the same bait. Everything would be the same except the leader length. And I
Hmm.
thought, well, if that worked for walleye, it'll work for catfish and behind wing dikes and off of
Hmm.
scour holes, it definitely paid off. But then it was about the same time, a good friend of mine, Jason Mathena, told me, he said, if you're not catching fish, you change that presentation. Doesn't matter what you change it to, but change it from what you're doing because it's something they don't like. If they're there, some of them are going to bite. And I've always took Jason at his word. He's one of the best fishermen I ever met in my entire life, and I've met all of them. But Jason's very intelligent. He catches a lot of fish. But he told me that a long time. Presentation is everything.
There you go.
I've been. We had one day last summer where zero point 0.8 miles per hour when we were drifting had to be at zero point 0.8. We went to 0.7, 0.6, not a bite. 0.9, not a bite. Second, it went back to 0.8. Bam. I mean, just fish after fish. So it's
Yep.
amazing how sometimes just the littlest thing, the littlest change is the difference between catching and not catching.
Justin
Ab-
Wolf was down fishing in the wintertime one time on Wheeler Lake, and I called him up and I said, how you doing? He said, I ain't doing worth a damn. He said, we can't hardly catch a fish down here. I said, what's the matter? Everybody else is catching them. He said, I don't know. Well, we're not catching them. Well, the very next day, he called me back, and Jason Bridges is one of the best well-known guys on Wheeler Lake that there is, and probably the best one down there. He was fishing with Joe Lucky in that tournament, and they went by Justin as he was fishing, and they waved, talked a little bit, and they motored on by. And about that time, they had a fish on both their rods.
Uh,
And Justin went over to Boy with him, and he said, "What are they doing that we're not doing?" He said, "They passed us. They're going faster than we
mm,
are." And he speeded up, and they instantly started catching fish. Usually, it's the other way around. You got to slow down, but not that day.
yeah,
yeah, it's amazing how, and I think that's true across catching all species of fish. If you're
I do
doing
too.
something and it's not working, make an adjustment. Even like you said, if it's a difference in leader line, or you don't necessarily have to change, your jig or the bait that you're using, but try something different.
That's right. That's right. Another big thing that works for us around here. Now, if you're on the lakes, it's shad is the main thing to use around here because the lakes don't have skipjack. They don't have hardly any moon eye, if any. I've not ever caught any. So she use shad all the time, and it works really well. When you're on the Mississippi and the Missouri River, all winter long, you better be using shad.
Mm,
And as soon as the water warms up in the spring, you better be
mhm.
switching over to moon eye or skipjack.
Gotcha.
Well, shad, you can't hardly buy fish, or I never could on shad. They just won't bite it. But skipjack is great bait. Moon eye is great bait in the summertime, but in the wintertime, you better have a hole you can run in there to throw a cast in, get you all the shad you want. You'll catch all the fish you want.
Yeah, because I've noticed like when I was on the boat a lot, each of my rods would have a little something different. Like I wouldn't tie all my rigs exactly the same. And it's funny because you end up fishing and then all your fish come on one rod, and it's like whatever that rod, the difference in that rod from the other rods, that's what they're looking for that night.
That's right.
Because, you continually will catch two or three or four off of one rod, and you've got another one that's sitting right beside it. That thinking about it, you think it's the same, but there's something different about that one particular rod as to why they're
Right.
biting.
Yeah, that's exactly right. There's a reason why it's getting hit. Maybe it's the depth of water. Maybe it's in a contour in there where it's in a seam or something. Maybe it's the bait. Maybe it's the length of your lead. There's a reason. I'm a firm believer in once you get one that's getting hit constantly, make them
Mhm.
all look like that for a while,
Yeah, absolutely.
or at least all look close to it.
Sandy makes a good point. If fish are eating across a variety of prey, we need to mix it up when it comes to what we're trying to lure them with.
That's right.
Absolutely. Yep. Smart advice. I like it a lot.
That is very true. Very true.
Yeah. And sometimes it is a difference in bait. Sometimes it's a different but you're right. This the slightest difference can make a huge difference to whether or not they're gonna bite or not. So
Yep.
that's a great
Yep,
piece of
that's a fact.
advice.
I do know I have found my own personal stuff on the lakes here when I'm using shad for bait.
Hmm.
In the wintertime, they're a whole lot easier to find and acquire than they are in the summertime
Mm.
because there are certain places that they'll be in the summer and you can kind of count on them being there. But if you go to that place very many times, everybody else can be going to it also. But in the winter, they all school up in the big coves, and all you got to do is go in that cove, and you'll find a cove where your screen turns red, and you throw your cast net. You only need to make one cast, and
Wow.
that's the kind I like.
Take the work out of it and use those electronics to make life a little
That's right.
easier.
That's right. One throw and you get all you want, and that's I love them kind. And it's not always like that, but in the winter, a lot of times it is.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it comes back to knowing your water and knowing where your prey
It does.
fish are
And another
and all.
thing is, they them fish really school up in the wintertime. So you find them coves that's got them, there'll be thousands and thousands of them. So that's the kind of stuff I want.
Absolutely. Yeah, Avid says he's done good fishing with just common carp for bait.
Yep, it's a great bait. They're just sometimes they're a little hard to get, sometimes they're not. It just depends on how much time you've got to get bait.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Right
Yep.
now, one of the biggest things about getting baits, Brenda, is the fact if you have to drive very far to get it, it's a deterrent for most people.
Mm-hmm.
Even as high as bait is to buy, sometimes I think you can buy it cheaper than you can drive your boat around and look for it because it costs so much to operate your truck and your boat right now. But hopefully that's going to change. We're just hoping it is.
Fingers crossed. Goodness gracious.
Yeah,
Either
thank you, Annette.
yeah, either that changes or we all get raises one because it's hard to
Yeah,
keep up with the way things are right now.
it's nearly impossible, but um, this election is going to change things one way or the other. Hopefully it'll be for our benefit.
Absolutely. Thanks, Annette, for dropping Panfish Weekly's link. I appreciate that. So, what do we got coming up this week on Panfish Nation?
We are going to have 4 giveaways and a grand prize giveaway for reaching 1,000 subscribers this week.
Woohoo.
So we want to
Congratulations on that, by the way.
thank you so much. It was a struggle, but we had a lot of great people helping us. Mark and Chad and James Dockery and Brian B and Has and um, the guys from the Mississippi River gang that comes in there, Creole and Danny Stone and all them guys. They all helped us a great deal to reach that. We were so close, and it just seemed like it was taking forever. And I think people got tired of waiting. They just jumped in there and bailed us out. But we really did go to town that last month, and I know Stan helped us with that too. And it's hard to remember everybody, but uh,
Mhm.
we appreciate all the help we got from that, and we're going to have a thank you show tonight to go along with that, and heck, who knows? We may have a couple other guys jump in there. It was going to be just Mark and I, but you never know. Somebody may want to come in. Of course, we're never going to say no.
Well, yeah, congratulations on that. You definitely got a fantastic show, and it definitely deserved to be hitting that 1,000 because I know you work hard at both of your shows, and it's a great show. It really is.
We
So,
sure have a lot of fun with it. Of course, Mark, he prefers catching crappie. He catches some bluegill and different things, but he really catches more crappie than the rest of us do. And my thing is bluegill, so I love to catch them. I think they're the hardest fighting fish pound per pound there is. Sometimes the fight don't last as long, but I'm okay with that, you know. But I love to catch some little devils. I like to eat them if they're big enough, but they make some of the best flathead bait there is. So I like that.
And
Yeah.
while as Kyle was saying, well deserved. I mean, if and think everybody out there pretty much started with panfish. So what
Yeah,
better way than have a show like yours to for same thing Kaz is trying to do here, get people that new to fishing and want to learn more about it. Just a great way. Every Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Panfish Nation.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. And you know, it was that whole thing come about. I had thought about that and thought about it and thought about it, and I messaged a good friend of mine. Believe it or not, I consider him a good friend of mine, James Dockery. And I asked James what he thought about doing a show like that. And he said, I can't do it with you because at the time he was still doing the bait shop with Chad. And I said, that's fine. I said, I just wanted an opinion whether you think it'd be worthwhile or whether I'd be wasting my time. He said, oh no. He said, I think you're going to hit a home run with that. He said, I'd say, and he gave me a number, and I don't remember what time. You'd be as big or bigger than Catfish Weekly. And I said, well, I don't know about that. It's been going a long time. And he's, I'm telling you, there's more pan fishermen out there than there is cat fishermen. And I believe he's right about that. So him hauled around the rest of that year and 4 or 5 months. And he messaged me one morning. It was right after the first of the year. He said, are you going to do anything with that? I said, I'm just still thinking about it. He said, well, stop thinking about it and make it happen. Okay. So I put some things together and got a hold of Mark, and he would go with me, and we jumped on there, and it was pretty successful. I called some people that I knew from way back and got a hold of Babe Winkleman, and that was one of the highlights because he hardly does anything like that. And I got Mike Baker, and I got I can't think of the other guy's name. It was a big deal. But we had several big guests on there that rarely do shows with other people. Some of them I'd known for quite a while. Some of them I hadn't known too much. And I didn't. It was hard for me to talk to Babe because his health is so bad. He has lung cancer really bad, and he struggles a little bit. But the guy has forgot more about fishing than most people will ever know. He was a great host for many years on a lot of TV shows, and his stuff was just amazing. He had the best of everything, but yet he'd always take time out to talk to a guy like me. Uh, so that was a prize show. Of all the shows I've done with all the big guests like Dance and all of them, that one with Babe was probably uh, the one I enjoyed very most.
Well, I agree. I was like, wow, this is, you talk about childhood. Babe was, I remember watching him from when I first remember, and you had O'Neill on, you had
Neil Williams, and he's a great guest too. He actually called me up, Stan, right after that show, and he said, I want to do some of the stuff that you're doing. I said, well, Neil, what do you want to do? He said, I want to know how you set up for your shows. I want to do them. And he tried it for a while. It wasn't as successful for him as he thought it should be. Don't think he's doing much of it now. But I sat down for a couple of hours to explain to him. He had a lady there that helps him do that stuff. And I
wow.
explained to her to where they could do it without a hitch. Because who could tell a guy like O'Neill Williams that doing a show with you, I can't do that. Well, I tell everybody anyhow. I don't ever tell somebody I can't do that because
Exactly.
if somebody had done me that way, I'd have never got where I was at. But I enjoyed doing that with O'Neill. He's a great guest, and he's another guy been around a long, long time. Had a lot of good shows, and you can't forget guys like that.
No,
Oh,
no, because I love to panfish. I absolutely love it. I always have. That's what I grew up on. And even when I'm catfishing, I'm always panfishing, always.
Yeah.
I've always got a lure in the water trying to catch those little bluegill because I just
Well,
absolutely love them.
another one that got me a little bit was Becca. She always watched for a long time. Watched Catfish Weekly, and a lot of the other shows, and she'd message me once in a while about a good show, this or that, or something. But when we started Panfish Nation, she shot me a message and she said, "Oh my God!" She said, "That's what we used to do as kids all the time." I said, "That's exactly right."
Hmm.
And I was so, she was so tickled that we started doing that show. But it's not went as fast as it could, but one of the reasons for that, in my mind, is I just haven't with this summer being the first time after the first year. Well, this is our goal this summer was to do a bunch of videos, and it's just been too hot. I can't get out and do them. So hopefully, when it cools off, we'll get out and do some more of them and get things up a little bit because the ones we do seem like people like and enjoy.
Absolutely. So LG Bass has got a great question. What's the best way to reach you if somebody wants to order those fantastic jigs you make?
The very best way is to just message me on Messenger, Lyle Stokes on Messenger, or you can email me at panfishnation at gmail.com or catfishweeklytv at gmail.com, or you can message me on Catfish Weekly or Panfish Nation, either one. I'm pretty accessible.
Gotcha. Perfect. So if anybody needs any jigs, absolutely reach out to Lyle. He's got some made up and ready for you. And so that'll be fantastic to get them,
If you tune
especially.
into Panfish Nation tonight, you might win some.
Hey, I'm definitely going to be there. I am definitely going to be there. Well, we've got it's 8 o'clock and about time to wrap it up. We've got the bait shop coming on Phil's to Waters channel. We will definitely go over and support them. And then we got Panfish Weekly coming up with Lyle and Mark at 9 o'clock. Don't want to miss that, especially for that 1,000 subscriber wonderful giveaway that I'm sure everybody in here is excited about. So, yeah, thank you for coming on the show tonight, Lyle. It was an honor and a real treat.
Thank you so
definitely.
much for inviting me. I appreciate it so much to be a part of your show. And been a while since Stan and I got to sit around and shoot the bull, so that was a lot
Yeah.
of fun. Maybe do that again, Stan. Thank you so much. I appreciate it very much. And anything I can ever do for you guys, all you have to do is let me know.
That's so nice, Lyle. I appreciate it. I'm really honored to have you on. It really is an honor.
I agree. I agree.
You're very
Yep.
welcome.
All right, everybody. Well, we're going to get out of here. See you over there at Phil's to Waters channel at the bait shop. I hope everybody has a fantastic week. Stay cool. And we will see you next week. We're going to start talking about bass. I hope everybody has a good one.
See ya.